Okay, everyone, Friday morning, and we're gearing up for Celtic's next game. Positive thoughts, everyone. We're going to get a big result tomorrow against Kilmarnock. This could even be the weekend where we clinch the league. So, positive chat to me, not just me on either. We've got Joe and Asim joining me. Okay, guys, any midweek action you've been watching? It was an interesting midweek of football. I know Celtic weren't involved, but there was a few Celtic-related storylines in there, Asim.
Yeah, caught a bit of the Champions League on Tuesday night with the Arsenal game. Thought it was a decent enough watch. Really disappointed with Real Madrid, but good to see Tierney come on. I think that was the highlight of the night. I thought he looked good when he came on. Brilliant free kicks, obviously from Declan Rice, and then caught a bit of the PSG. Villa game yesterday, and I thought they were brilliant. I think they've been them between them and Barca. I think they've been the most exciting teams to watch in Europe this season, and that's the kind of final I'd like to see in a week where Gary Neville's been slating football, isn't he? Some of which I think he's got a point, but yeah, I think it'd be good to see PSG and Barca. Just the way they play football has been refreshing. And then unfortunately, caught a bit of the Europa League last night as well. And 100 odd minutes I won't get back. Wasn't the best watch. So yeah.
Just as well, Gary Neville's a Man United fan and wouldn't have been watching Rangers Athletic Club because it was pretty dire stuff, Joe. Yeah, I mean, Thursday nights are strange. Like, Rangers lose all these games to Hibs have beaten them, Queen's Park have beaten them, Motherwell beat them, St Mirren beat them, and yet Athletic Club with against 10 men for the majority of the game can't get it done. It's a strange world we live in.
Yeah, strange is probably the nicest way. Terrifying in other ways if Rangers get their way next week. I didn't see any of the game. I was saying off camera I had been out and just thought I'd check on the scoreline with, I don't know, 15 minutes to go, and Google informed me that it was 1-0. So I put my phone away and was going about my business quite content until I realised that the goal had been chopped off, and then there was confusion, and then there was a penalty that was missed. It all seems very Rangers in the Europa League, to be honest. But aye, it's already out of my mind. I'm thinking about Kilmarnock now. So.
Good. That's what we need, and we're discussing. So I just wanted to mention that because Celtic fans will be discussing it. What's been happening at Celtic this week? Then it's been pretty quiet. Everyone, we've not really had a peep or heard a peep from the club. We've not heard a peep from either of you since for a while, but certainly since the weekend. Joe, you've got a really bad record. I said this to you during the week, but I was looking back at your appearances. I think you've had maybe 3 on the channel, and after all of them, we've lost matches. Hibs, Rangers, and now St Johnstone. What are you doing?
When you brought it to my attention, I was ready to ban myself. To be fair, if we believe in superstition at all, I hadn't realised it was quite so bad. And I mean, I'm a generally quite a positive person when it comes to Celtic. I'm probably a glass half full. And every time I've been made to regret it, so maybe I need to start putting the boot in a bit more and being a bit more realistic in 2025, which has proven to be a strange one for Celtic, isn't it? I can't believe this season. I mean, I've said this on the channel already, but there were moments in 24 near the start of the season where I was coming away from the game with my dad, and I genuinely believed that it was the most entertained I'd been coming out of a Celtic game since the O'Neill era. And I know that sounds like I'm maybe being over enthusiastic about it. I'm talking about Ange Postecoglou, Brendan Rodgers, and the Invincibles time, but the football was just so good. I'm not saying that it was, there was better results or bigger fixtures or Champions League, whatever, but I just felt genuinely entertained. And it's completely turned on its head. This year, you're coming away from games whether you've watched it on the TV or whether you've been there yourself and completely disillusioned. So if ever they needed to bounce back and put it right, if nothing else but to shut us up and to do my record on this channel a wee bit of a turn, then come on, it's the time to do it.
How are you feeling about things at the moment, Asim?
Yeah, I've not been on in quite a while, maybe over a month. So it's probably not been the worst time to be distracted with other things. I've had a lot going on in terms of my personal life and stuff. So I'm getting married in summer, so I've been busy with prep for all that. So yeah, strangely, I've not I've been obviously following all the games and been at the games, but yeah, it's just a strange season or end kind of climax to the season. It's looking like where we're on the cusp of a treble, but it just feels like we've still got some business to obviously get through in terms of the Scottish Cup, but even just the league, it's petering out a wee bit. We've got 6 games to kind of rectify that. I think in seasons gone by, once the league's clinched, you kind of allow for a bit of slack performance. I don't think it will this time. I think we have to, specifically that game at Ibrox is going to mean a lot more than it would in previous seasons when it's ultimately after the league's clinched, and that's as a result of our form in 2024, as you mentioned, Joe, 2025, sorry. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work still to be done, to which I know people might call it entitled. I don't think so. I think what we've seen in the last couple of months, some of the performances goes below what we've come to expect and what I think Celtic are capable of. And for whatever reason, you've seen the manager's comments at the weekend as well. He's not been happy with it. So yeah, I think we need to bounce back tomorrow. It could have been such a great day. I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. It was all set up for a first time clinching at Celtic Park in 7 years. Would have been a great day out. So yeah, we could still win the league this weekend. It could be one of those where you win it without kicking a ball on Sunday. Personally, I'd rather we win it ourselves. I don't know. Some people have different opinions. I think we know we're going to win the league, so it's not one of those. It's on a knife edge. I'd rather have a fixture where we can win it ourselves.
Yeah, we had that debate on the channel this week. I'm pretty relaxed about it. Whatever happens. But yeah, I think you're right. Had we won against St Johnstone on Sunday, we'd all just be totally buzzing looking at Saturday. Saturday now kind of feels like a bit of a strange game in that we know the league's won. I guess we all want to see a reaction, but you're on the brink of a title. But if we don't start the game strongly on Saturday, there's going to be groans inside the stadium and pressure on the team, and various players are going to have to play through that. So yeah, it's a bizarre place we're in. Listen, we'll circle back to the Kilmarnock game. Just before that, bit of chat. Matthias Kvistgaarden chat ramping up again. Brøndby chairman Jan Beck Anderson saying that his club turned down offers in January for Kvistgaarden. Not sure if it's Celtic or not. He says, there were never any numbers that made us deviate from our plan not to sell him in this transfer window. They weren't good enough, but hopefully it will be when the time is right for him and the club. It was 100% a goal for us to keep him for the rest of the season. There have been many inquiries about him on the last day and the penultimate day of the transfer window, but we have a good dialogue with Kvistgaarden and his agent about what we are trying to achieve together. The plan was for him to play for us in the spring when we have many big goals to achieve, and then we have to see what happens in the summer. Do you think we're going to sign a striker in the summer, Joe, given how Dyson is doing?
The last time when we spoke about this when I was last on, I said no. But I think, and this isn't to be overly harsh on Dyson Maeda, but he wasn't, by his own standards set in more recent times, he wasn't brilliant last Sunday. And it kind of shows that Adam Maeda came on and he broke the lines a few times. He gets that ball. It's him that plays the ball across for James Forrest, isn't it? The one that James Forrest misses. Maybe not enough of an impact. I saw quite a lot of negativity being kind of directed his way and not changing the game, and John Hartson put his bit in about not doing enough kind of thing. And I think that Dyson Maeda has been almost faultless since moving into that central role. Kvistgaarden's been one that's been spoken about for a long time. It's interesting you spoke about the strategy that Brøndby have, talking about a striker being in their plans, and then the way that Celtic let go of Kyogo right in the middle of a Champions League campaign, which still boggles the mind. But I don't. It's not a position which I think is priority personally. But given Celtic apparently have been chasing this guy for a long time, they're clearly interested in him. And to just again go back to the fact of putting other players under pressure for those places. I mean, if they were to bring him in, Adam Maeda risks being third choice striker. I mean, surely he didn't foresee that when he was being spoken about in the summertime. So maybe that's a kind of a wee bit of smoke under his backside and gets him going a bit harder and a bit faster and a bit more determined to get himself into that position. So wouldn't be against it, maybe not priority for me, but again, like I said the last time, any chat just now is great. It just needs to materialise into something a bit more substantial.
Has the recent slump of the team changed your opinion on how much business we need to do this summer, Asim?
Definitely. I think the squad depth and quality maybe isn't as strong or not as balanced as we maybe thought it was the earlier parts of the season. I think the fact it's kind of gone on quite a while now. You know, there was points where we were all gearing up towards the young boys game and then the Bayern game, so we kind of made allowances for, for a lot of the performances. But I think just generally, I think there's not a rebuild at all, but I think there's a few positions which we still have to address. I think the midfield balance to me doesn't seem right. Um, the Nicholas Kuhn's drop off in performance is always a concern. Daizen Maeda, if we are looking to use him much more as a centre forward, it means that the wide areas need looked at again. That's why for me, I think the centre forward position is still a must and a priority, because Maeda, 2/3 of his like 30 odd goals he's had this season were still from the wide position. He's still a really effective player out wide, and by taking him out of there, you're potentially weakening your wide options still. And Brendan spoke about it openly in quite a few times that the strike, this was, you know, Dyson being so good there isn't a reason not to still look and strengthen. And he said that in January, and he said it since as well. So for me, a striker is still needed. Again, we can't fool ourselves in the fact that Ida hasn't been the success we all thought he would be this season. Still think there's something there. Still think, you know, I'm not giving up on him, but it's not been the season we all hoped it would be for Ida. And you look at the fact that when Kyogo's gone, everyone thought that was Ida's chance to be that main man. And, you know, Daizen's form coupled with Ida's lack of form meant that that's not been the case either. So I think there's a few areas where we're still having to address, added to the fact that we've got a qualifier. Yeah, you look at some of the teams that we could get, it's not a foregone conclusion. So I think there's business still to be done. And I think the more links we get, the sooner the better, because you want to be as prepared as you can for those qualifiers.
It's crazy how quickly things change, because at the start of the season, or even when the summer transfer window closed, we're all looking at the squad saying, like, this is as strong a squad as we've had. And okay, we lose Kyogo, but we sign Jota, we bring in Schlupp. And again, everyone feels really good about the squad after the Bayern Munich game. I know we were speaking maybe about kind of options off the bench, needing to improve that, because the subs we brought on in Munich, for example, were a bit of our undoing that night. But I think people felt like the first team was really good, and then literally a month and a half on, we're looking at the squad, and suddenly, like, a lot of the players we felt really sure about, we have doubts about. Like Nicholas Kuhn, I'm already seeing people saying that if they got 10 million for Kuhn in the summer, they'd be taking it. And the difference with that, from what we were saying at the start of the season, when people are talking about Kuhn being our next £30 million player, and Engels, who I thought did quite well, now everyone's having real doubts about him, and various other players. So I think these guys can come back, but it does feel to me like we need to freshen things up a bit in the summer. Kieran Tierney will help with that, but I just think there's a number of players there that have their place secured.
I think it's a mentality thing with some of the players that we're seeing here, is the fact that the manager quite openly almost questioned that at the weekend makes you think that, yeah, there's something to it. The fact that Nicholas Kuhn keeps getting taken off, you know, at half time in some games, makes you wonder, is his head elsewhere? You know, obviously we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but the sheer drop off since Bayern Munich, you know, almost you do wonder, is he just thought like that's his job done this season? You know, he was in the shop window, he had his big moments in Europe, and he's, you know, we don't know. You know, I'd like to think it is just a drop in form, but again, it's gone on for quite a time now. Rio Otati, I think a lot of Celtic fans are probably in agreement that, you know, it could be the right time for all parties concerned for him to go in summer. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of turnover. Greg Taylor's obviously going. Centre backs, you know, it looked like for a while we were saying, oh, we've got Carter Vickers, Trusty and Scales, and we couldn't decide between, you know, three really good options, and then suddenly a few FA performances.
We've got zero options.
Yeah, you know, Carter Vickers is not looking great. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of ins and outs needed this summer. But yeah, as you said at the start, we've got a lot still to be positive about. But I think the last wee while has just kind of alerted us to the fact that the squad still needs a bit of work.
I see Celtic have got a job online, guys. Did you come across this? First team analyst. Joe, if you want to return to the club in a role right next to Brendan Rodgers. Job description: Celtic Football Club is currently seeking a first-team analyst reporting to the head of analysis. The first-team analyst plays a crucial role in providing strategic and tactical insights to support the coaching staff and first-team players in enhancing performance on the field. Key accountabilities: I'm not reading all of this, but collect, organise and present match data, performance statistics and video footage, create visual presentations, coordinate and lead opposition preview meetings prior to each upcoming fixture, travel to watch upcoming opponents live as and when required. Pretty fun job that. No, I'm kind of thinking about going for it myself.
I think if I was to go for that, I might risk my record on this channel transferring over to Celtic proper, so I should probably steer well clear. No, just to go back to Asim's point about the kind of the mentality of the team, in terms of what the manager was saying before, maybe getting a new analyst in helps that across the board behind the scenes. But I think, I was last on the channel being quite defensive of Nicholas Kuhn and questioning maybe the backlash, if you want to call it that, to his drop off in performances, and I include myself in that. I've been as guilty of that and criticising him and wondering, is it as bad as it seems? This guy's been phenomenal at the start of the season, but against St Johnstone, and as you say, Asim, the manager addressed it. He didn't name players, but he said some people's heads weren't in the game, paraphrasing, and obviously he comes off at half time. If it's a case that he's disinterested, if it's what you say, perhaps his head's been turned, and we don't know, but if that's the case, it is really frustrating because Nicholas Kuhn hasn't won enough to be jaded at Celtic, quite bluntly. You look at people like Cameron Carter-Vickers, who's maybe going through a bit of a poor form patch just now. Alistair Johnson, the same. These guys have won. Cameron Carter-Vickers won 8 trophies. Alistair Johnson won 6. Nicholas Kuhn's won 2 and came in January last year.
3, sorry,
yeah.
Yeah, I just can't have disservice towards Kuhn, but your point remains.
My maths isn't good enough, but yeah, you know what I mean. It's not coming in halfway through a season, and he's contributed well. But if that's the case, it is quite disappointing. And interesting, kind of trying to dissect the manager's words at full time at arm's length about that kind of focus. I remember hearing a story about Brendan Rodgers when he came into the club and he got everybody in and he was asking them, his man management is well known, that it's been brilliant, all the way from Moussa Dembele right through to players like Nicholas Kuhn in the modern era. And he got all the players in and he almost, I think it was like he gave them homework. He's like, what do you want to achieve in the next 3 years at Celtic, kind of thing. And it's really basic. I'd heard that he did the same at Leicester. It's really basic, but the players really bought into it. It was that real, he's speaking to the collective, but it's really personal as well. So at a time when form is taking a drop, this is when you want the manager's kind of management to come in. Maybe it's just getting over the line and resetting, getting things done, hopefully wrapping up the treble and then going from there next year.
I think it's important we finish the season really strongly, though. Obviously, in terms of winning the treble, it's going to be a total disaster if we don't win the treble. But also, you look back at last season and how strongly we finished the season, and I think that really carried into the start of this season. So if you're going into the summer, we all feel good about ourselves. The team come back, renewed purpose next year into the Champions League, which we know will definitely motivate them. My concern would be if we just continue this malaise till the end of the season and then we're kind of questioning everything going into next season. Here's my team for the game, guys. This is what I posted earlier in the week. There's a few positions in there people are arguing with. They're saying I should have Taylor in. People saying I should have James Forrest in. I don't know who else. Naropsky potentially. You guys get any thoughts, Asim?
I think it's totally up for grabs, every position almost, because nobody's playing well enough to be I think obviously in the midfield you'd want your captain McGregor in. I agree with McCowan and Bernardo as well, actually, because Bernardo's been back on the squads for a couple of weeks now. So I think he deserves a start. I thought McCowan looked okay when he came on. Looked to be making things happen. And I definitely don't think Engels and Hatate have been in good enough form to keep their spot. Again, at the back, you can't argue with any of that. Alistair Johnson's not playing well at the moment. Maybe Taylor back in. Maybe Taylor back in is a shout. He's coming towards the end of his Celtic career, obviously. He's maybe deserves to go out on a nice kind of high and be part of that team again that, like you say, can give us a bit of impetus towards the end of the season. He's been there and done it. He knows what it's like to finish a season strong. So yeah, there's an argument there. I think in the wide areas, yeah, I think Yang looked lively when he came on again. But you don't want to make too many changes either.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. It can then be really disjointed. So it's a balancing act. It'll be interesting actually for the first time in a while to see what the manager does after being so critical at the weekend. I think there will be a fair few changes. I don't think it'll be too far off what you've put up there, Hamish. But yeah, look, just to touch on the kind of overall dynamic of things, I wonder if the fact that like the league has just been so comfortable from so early on, ever since we beat Rangers 3-0 at Celtic Park, the lead's always been 8 points plus. It's never really been close at all. So it seemed like our whole season then, from then on in, focused on the Champions League. That's where all the kind of focus and hype and intensity was geared towards. Even from a fan base, probably. You could say
definitely,
that.
Definitely.
And I think had it been a tighter title race, things would be different. I think that's a given. Look at last year, this time last season, so when we kind of came alive domestically, went in a good run. So I think all these things have factored into it. But I agree with Joe. Some of these players haven't earned the right to kind of just feel like that. I don't, like you said, the season pros who've been there, done that. Maybe even you could argue Rio Tati. He's won a few titles now. But your Arne Engels and your Nicholas Kuhn, Ida, these kind of guys, I don't think they've earned the right to just almost just get pumped up for the Champions League games now that the title's been done for so long. I think that's where it does come down to mentality and having been there and done it consistently for seasons. Nicholas Kuhn essentially now we could argue has had a really, really good 6 months, because last season from January he was okay. He contributed, but it was really the start of this season where he was on fire. But then you could say from January onwards, he's dipped. So, yeah, I hope he can get his form back, because when he was electric, Joe's right, there was a period where St Johnstone away, Aberdeen in the Cup semi, Leipzig, that kind of period was as good a Celtic run of performances as you've seen for a long time in terms of attacking football, exciting. So we've been there at points this season, but we've just not been able to do it consistently. So that's where the manager will be, like you say, using his man management skills to try and get them over the line with a bit more of a flourish and something to actually get fans off the edge of their seats again.
And I think that's the thing. It's like, sorry to interrupt, Hamish, but like last season we had it in reverse, didn't we? When Brendan Rodgers comes back and he's adapting to the previous cohort and he's getting himself, and then it was a bit of a dip and you weren't really sure if it was definitely going to work this time. And then obviously you have a really strong finish, and it was one of the best ends to a season in recent memory as well. The fact that football's so, as we well know, so influenced by recency bias that those brilliant performances in 2024 almost seem like a distant memory. You get caught up in the here and now so much. And just to touch on your point as well, I'm not the first person to say this, but anyone who's switched off because the league's finished the league's not finished until we win it. Now, it would take a massive collapse for Celtic not to win it, but I can forgive the malaise or the disengagement or the disenfranchised attitudes when it's done. Yeah. Let's get it done.
and you can argue this goes back to even that Ibrox game back in January. It was that's where it almost you felt like even then the players had just went in it. So that's why this next Ibrox game is huge. I think regardless of obviously whether the league possibly will be done by then, I think that game takes on a whole new importance for how the feeling will be at the end. Obviously, we're going to have trophy day, and hopefully, if the team can pick up their form, we're going to have a treble, and it's going to be brilliant again. Never take for granted these big celebrations, but I do think there's a lot of importance now in how we finish this season, and particularly that game at Ibrox.
Yeah, because things can change so quickly. That's the thing. We could go out and batter Kilmarnock tomorrow and either win the league the following day or have a chance to win it potentially at Celtic Park after the split. I mean, go and beat St Johnstone, get into the final, win that game well, and suddenly everyone's feeling really good. I always remember 2 seasons ago under Ange Postecoglou, and it was a bit different because we'd already won the league, but remember we went through that really weird couple of weeks where he was probably half out the door. Yeah, it was St Mirren at home. I always remember St Mirren at home. I think we spoke after that game and it was 2-2, And like, it was just a weird performance. Curtis Main nearly scored a hat-trick that day at Celtic Park. And everyone was getting a bit worried even about Inverness in the final.
Yeah,
And then we beat Inverness comfortably. And I know Ange left soon after that, but everyone kind of forgave that period. Now, I know this has been a longer period, but I do think if Celtic finish the season strongly, and bear in mind it's only 8 games, and we're going to be favourites to win 7 of them at least, go and win these final 8 matches, 6 in the league, 2 in the cup, and everyone's going to be feeling so good, and this is going to be a memorable season. So that's the motivation I'd be giving the team. I just don't know if, like, as good as that sounds as a fan, I don't know if that's massively motivating some of those players at the moment. Like, I just think personally that a lot of them have got a bit complacent with Scottish football, and they just expect to turn up and win these games. And we all know from years gone past that even with all the quality Celtic always have, you need to have the right attitude, because if you don't, teams like St Johnstone, like, it's their cup final when they play against us, and you come unstuck. So we need to finish the season strongly, but I just have some doubts.
It's crazy when you put it like that, though. Like, you could end up with a treble and through to the knockout round of the Champions League, and within minutes of taking Bayern Munich to extra time. So on paper, that's probably what our most successful season since 20. When was the last time we got through the group stages of the Champions League? Neil Lennon.
Yeah. So we didn't win a treble that season, so
and we didn't win a treble. So you're going even further back. So it's
such a strange season, because also you could fundamentally you could lose the game at Ibrox, have lost 3 of the 4 derbies in the league, finish the league 10 points or so clear, and win a treble. Have a remarkable season in Europe. I can't remember a season where it's been so unpredictable like this. Even going back to, like, the one that's coming into my head quite a lot is the 06-07 season.
Stevie mentioned that.
Yeah, where Naka scored
in the last minute. I mean, Celtic lost. I was checking this earlier. Like, they lost the second game against Hearts. There's a couple of draws in there, but they win every other game up until Rangers. I've got it in front of me now. Rangers on the 10th of March. They then lose back-to-back, Falkirk away from home, draw against Dundee United. I remember the Motherwell game after that 1-0. It was a bit of a slog. I think Derek Riordan scored. And then the game after that's the Kilmarnock game against the Kilmarnock game 2-1 where Nakamura scores in the last minute. Celtic weren't brilliant that day. Obviously, amazing scenes at the end, because it's another.
I was at that game, Joe, and I remember like as the clock's ticking, like, fans were not happy, because it looked like again it was going to be another draw.
Yeah.
And then obviously I get just the way it happened, and the free kick and the last minute jubilation. Like Hamish said earlier, you almost forget about all the previous stuff because of the high of that moment. But that's a good example of probably the last time it went so kind of downhill in terms of performances.
And that's obviously not. It's only a few. If you go from the March defeat against Rangers, it was the February against Milan. A big, exhausting European post-group stage. So I mean, there's so many parallels with this season,
and a very heroic kind of performance that night as well. So very, very similar. Very, very. Yeah. But the thing was, that was Strachan's second season.
Yep.
Am I right? Yeah. And I felt, obviously we won the league the next season, but again we kind of struggled to. That was the Tommy Burns season. So I think the hope is it's not a trajectory thing. It's not a case of this is a sign of things to come, and I think that's where the manager's got to ensure that we freshen things up as he sees fit in terms of the type of mentality and type of players that we bring in, and if he feels there are certain guys in there that earlier in the season we would be like, no chance do we want to sell Nicholas Kuhn, but if the manager's picked up that his heart's not in it, and as Ange Postecoglou said throughout his time, if players don't want to be here, I think we've all learned that it's best to let them go and freshen things up.
Kuhn's extremely talented, but give me someone like Yang at the moment who's talented as well, but like, and I know it stands out so much when the team that's starting games is so lethargic generally. And I know there's always a thing of players who aren't starting games become better, and I've heard so much stuff this week. And I've got Anthony Rowson in my team, for example, and we all love Rowson, but there's a reason, Johnson plays ahead of Rowson, and guys like Rowson, maybe at times Greg Taylor become a bit better when they're not playing. The point I'm going to make about Yang is that every time Yang comes on, he just has hunger, and he just looks so ready and willing to try and make something happen, and that's such a contrast to Kuhn at the moment. So I think big game for Yang tomorrow. I don't know if he's really started a game recently, has he? So a big opportunity for him, and and hopefully he has a big one and a few other changes. I think Paulo Bernardo's an obvious one I'd like to see coming in. I'm assuming he didn't come on last weekend because of the pitch, just back from injury. I think Luke McCowan I'd like to see start. We're going to get a win.
To see a kind of good performance from Jota again as well. Like, I think he's been fine, but a really kind of sparkling performance from him again. That would be nice to see. I think we're all kind of waiting for him to kind of spark back into life. He obviously his return when he came back straight away with the goal in his debut and the highs of that. But yeah, just over the last couple of weeks, that's kind of faded away as well. So yeah, there's plenty of options. I thought Forrest looked good again, so that's another option that the manager might think, you know what, he deserves to start as well.
We're going to get a win, Joe, with given your record.
I'm not coming back, and it's on me. I'm taking full responsibility if Celtic don't win against Kilmarnock. I think that with the manager making such a public display without naming names and obviously bringing people off at half time and the way the result went, we've needed a response a few times this season, and it's maybe not materialised. But this is the one. This is the stage to do it. It's at Celtic Park. The win could still help us win the league, and I completely agree with you guys in theory, but I just want it won. I want Aberdeen to win. I want us to win on Saturday. I don't care where it is. I just love Celtic winning. It kind of harks back to me for the argument you might have heard from fans across the city saying, "Oh, but it's better when you've got a strong." No, it's not better. No, I want Celtic to win all the time.
you're like my dad.
Yeah, and maybe it's just to me we're getting older or whatever. But I just want Celtic to win, and I want Celtic to have trophies in the cabinet. And
Is it because of a worry that it drags on, or just because my dad's the same? Like, I remember there was a year, I can't remember, under Ronnie Dyler maybe, where I think Aberdeen drew with Dundee United on the Sunday or something, and it was the breaking news on the Sky Sports News, and I was just like to my dad, "This is not how you want to win a league." Obviously, like, again, that sounds pure like ungrateful, but you'd rather watching Celtic win a game, like last year at Rugby Park. Brilliant night, 5-0. You go to Celtic Park after.
Don't get me wrong. I think my preference is to see it at Celtic Park, or to see it where Celtic are kicking a ball. But I don't care enough. And I think when it's the league, and obviously it can't happen in cup tournaments, knockout tournaments, but when it's the league, for me, it's a reward for all the hard work. We can't erase 2024, like we said at the start of the conversation. It was phenomenal football. It's not been brilliant in recent weeks, but just get it over the line for me, and then we can just focus fully on that treble, and it's by no means a foregone conclusion. St Johnstone know how they need to play. I think it'll be a different game, obviously, in a different pitch, in a different arena, but I just want it done so we can shift the focus onto the next bit, and then hopefully we can get over the line. Yeah, I hope Celtic are going to do the business, because as I say, I'll need to consider my position here, Hamish. I love being on, but too much of a jinx at this point.
So, Asim, you're actively going to support Rangers on Sunday?
So you might remember last season, so the night before the game at Rugby Park, Rangers were playing Dundee, and I think Dundee were 2-0 up.
They were.
So at Ibrox, and I remember watching it, and then I was with my dad, and my dad was buzzing. He's like, "Yes," and I was like, "No, I wasn't supporting Rangers." But I was like, it'll be, and do you know what? Last year was obviously tighter. It wasn't as big a gap. So I think deep down, I would have been absolutely delighted. But it's just if I had to pick, especially with the gap being this big, would I draw at Pittodrie? That would keep it going, wouldn't it? Another week? Yeah. No,
it would be over in theory, because obviously our goal difference.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be.
But no, I think we'll win. I think we'll win tomorrow. I think at Celtic Park, other than obviously the Rangers game, we've been pretty comfortable. I don't think there's been any domestic home game where I've felt we're not going to win. Obviously, the 2 each draw at home to Aberdeen, but by and large, it's been the away form that's been the concern. Our home form has been pretty solid. So yeah, I think we will see a reaction. I think we will win, and I've got a feeling that Rangers won't. Especially after the Europa League. Playing with 10 men. Aberdeen are on decent form, so I can see Aberdeen actually getting the win there. And this time Sunday, I think we could be champions.
Okay, we'll have a video for you shortly after full time tomorrow. Kickoff's 12:30 live on Sky Sports. If we manage to win and then the title's sealed on Sunday, we'll try and sort maybe a live stream or something on Sunday as well. But for now, thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game tomorrow. Same goes for all of you. As I say, I'll catch you afterwards.